So here's a writing story. I've just got to share it with you. I've been teaching memoir for a while, and it's not uncommon if I've got a class that at least one person comes to me and says, well, I want to tell my grandma story for my children. And I always say to them, these students, don't do that. Your children or your grandchildren already know your grandma, or they know as much as they want to know for the most part. And when you write a story for people who don't know the person you're writing about, you learn, when you're writing for strangers, you learn more about the subject than when you're writing for friends. And I stand by that, generally speaking. We get to know somebody when we meet them better than when we read their memoir. It's true for me when I read people's memoirs. I know more about them when they say hello than when I read their book. It's true. But that said, um, my father-in-law, before he died, wrote a memoir called Dancing on the Contradictions. And took place, it covered a period of time between the late 50s and the mid 70s when he did a lot of revolutionary work in education. And it covered his time discovering he was interested in education, and then becoming a teacher, and then starting these schools that were really ahead of their time when he created them. And this was an important part of his life. And so, towards the end of his life, he wanted to write a book about that. And so, it was part memoir, part manifesto about education, where it's going, and what he saw for it. So, and he's a good writer, and he self-published it. It was a big book, but he had published some books traditionally. He had self-published others, and he self-published it. But he finished it. The books got delivered, and then he died. He was right at the end there, and so okay, so that got done. And really, once he had passed, the book they sort of sat because there was no one to promote it. There was nothing really to do with it. So okay, that's how that went. But my wife's mother, and my mother-in-law, Linda, has dementia. So she had been married to Jen's father during the period of time that this book was covered, or at least most of it. But she has dementia now. She's 87, and she's in a memory care facility. But she's still, although she's got dementia, she still is pretty sharp. In terms of someone to talk to, but she's got the memory issues. And one thing she's discovered is she still likes to read, which is great. So we brought her books, but she spotted Dancing on the Contradictions because it had not been given to her when it was published. And she said, well, what's that book? She saw it in our house, and we told her what it was. She said, I want to read that. We said, oh, okay, fine. So we gave it to her, and she's been reading it, and she loves it. She is so happy to be reading this book because even though it's not about her, and it's really about her ex-husband and his life and his ideas, she's in it to some degree. And it covers a period of Larry, my father-in-law's life, when she was around. So he's describing events that she was a part of. And she's forgotten a lot of stuff. It's interesting what she forgets and what she remembers, but of course she's forgotten a lot of stuff. But the experience of reading about her own past has been so meaningful to her and so enjoyable that it made me momentarily rethink my advice to my students about why they should write their memoir. I mean, I still stand by that books are better, I think, when we write for strangers because we have to do things with the story that we don't have to do with people who already know part of the story. But I think it's important, this particular experience with that book and my mother-in-law, because you don't know when we write books. Larry, certainly, my father-in-law, when he wrote it, he wouldn't know the effect it would have on Linda, his ex-wife of many years. They'd been separated for years and years when he wrote that book. And when we write and publish books, we don't know who will benefit from them, where they'll go, what lives they'll change. I've had a couple of experiences of meeting people who read one article I wrote and somehow carried the message of that article around the world. And then we met by chance. I didn't know when I wrote it. I just wrote it because it meant something to me. Look, it's not a lot to hang on to as you're working and you don't know where your work is going and how it's going to be received or who's going to receive it. But know that you can't know the effect it'll have. But you do know, trust somewhere in your heart that it will have an effect. It does. Everything we do goes out and ripples out. And the stories we share, whether published traditionally or self-published, they reach people somehow and they have an effect. And we can't predict, and it's not our job to predict. The books have their own life in a way, like children doing their own thing, meeting their own people. That's the beauty of it. So you do your part. You do your part, put it out there, and then let the book do all the good it can. That's the way it works. Yes, it does. Hey, thanks for tuning in. If you hit subscribe, which I hope you do, it does help this channel and it helps spread the word. It's free. And that way also, you don't have to miss anything. And that's good, isn't it? And if you like it, say so. I do love to hear from you. So until next week, this is Bill Kenower. Stay fearless.